Are back on Bold Movers and Shakers. It's Alexis Ray. I am delighted to present to you, Devi Adea, the amazing one and only. Oh, she's blushing. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see what I'm talking about, and if you're not, you're just missing a beautiful smile. Devi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alexis. Thanks so much for having me. This is delightful. I've been really looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. Just busting out on the edges here. Devi is a spiritual entrepreneur podcast host. Yes. And there is a story behind that, and there's a story behind that. And I would like very much for her to take the floor on this because, guys, if you've ever had any hesitation about expressing yourself, let this lady encourage you because she's done it in a big way. So tell me what it was like back in the day. When you were kind of in the closet, weren't you?
Yeah. So I grew up in a very cosmopolitan yet also a very mystical family. So, for example, my dad was president of a bank, but he was also a yogi. My grandpa was in the FBI, but my grandma was I call her a mystic, but you know, where people have like clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience. I call it like a Claire family.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm kind of stuck on the yogi bank guy. What?
Yeah. Totally crazy. So he lived in two very different worlds, right? Because when I was growing up, you couldn't talk about your spirituality in that way that we do now, right? I live in San Diego now. It's okay.
Yes.
So
everything's okay in San Diego.
Absolutely. So growing up in Washington, D.C., at 5 years old, I remember being in school and just telling the kids at school, like, hey, my deceased relative was visiting us at dinner at grandma's house, and they were talking to him, right? And they're like, what, you freak? What are you talking about? And I remember going to my grandma being like, Grandma, why are they calling me a freak? What did I do? And she's like, honey, you can't tell people what we talk about at the dinner table or they'll lock you in a rubber room and throw away the key.
Oh, no.
So I very quickly as a child started to compartmentalize that part of myself, which was my true experience of life, which is a deeply spiritual experience, and focus a lot on those external things that I thought I should do. Maybe you can relate to the things that we do that we think we should. And so, you know, I got a dual degree from Carnegie Mellon, went to work for Oracle Corporation. One New Year's Eve, I'm sitting down at Oracle and I wrote out a short list of things I wanted to do, my bucket list, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm compartmentalizing all of who I am and focusing on the external achievements. And I'm seeing these people making seven figures. And so they're some of the most miserable people that I've ever seen. And they're like, you know, buying whatever just to keep up with the Joneses. And I'm like, well, it's clearly not about acquisition that's bringing fulfillment.
Right.
And then I did this short list of things and I found a list from 2 years prior. And I'm like, wow, in 2 years of my life, I've done nothing of the things that I say are most important. So I checked off one a month and I went skydiving and scuba diving and traveled Europe and ran a marathon. It was like a crazy year. And at the end of the year,
you did all that in a year?
Oh, more than that. Yeah, it was a crazy year.
Oh my God.
And it was one a month, you know, and it was at the end, I was like, well, now what? It's really not about acquisition. It's clearly not just about experiences, although they help to stretch us as a human and they're really great. So I thought, well, I got invited to this seminar and my friend was like, if you go, I'll go. And I know I was going to be walking on fire. What was going to happen that day?
It was Tony Robbins seminar?
It was Nancy Robbins. Yeah, it was Nancy Robbins seminar. And he said, I'm starting a coaching division. If you'd be interested in making a difference in the lives of people, you know, come on out and apply. So I thought, oh, contribution, maybe that's it. So I applied and I came back to work and literally like, here's me in the organization. Here's my boss, his boss's boss, and Larry Ellison, who owns the company that I was with. All of those people in the middle left and it was me and it was a reorg. It was like, the universe was like, go on, honey. So I had some time to decide if I wanted to stay or go. And I just left.
Wow.
And I went and I did a month-long interview with Anthony Robbins companies, got hired as an in-house coach for a little while. And what I realized was it was nice to make a difference for people, but it wasn't, the contribution was an important aspect, but I was feeling this gnawing from the inside of something that was missing. I went through a lot of years of that to come to realize one day I'm sitting on a plane flying from San Diego to DC and back again. And I'm listening to a podcast on podcasting. Came back and I'm like, I think I want to do a podcast. And my friend's like, well, me too. And I'm like, well, how long do you think it would take? She's like, I don't know, maybe 2 months. And I'm like, okay, we'll give ourselves 2 months, right? But here's the thing. I still couldn't figure out what this thing was that was pushing on my heart and soul. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like, I could do so many different things. And so she said, well, you've had this spiritualentrepreneur.com since, 99. Why don't you use that? And I was like, oh, I can't talk about that. Like, I can't say that, and she said, honey, you got 72 hours. She's like, figure it out. If it's not that, it's going to be something better, but if you don't have something better, that's what you're doing. And so I didn't come up with something better. And, and we went through, and in 2 months I launched my show. I had to tell my personal story, which I'm, telling you right now, but for me then it was terrifying to share about that backstory for me and talk about my spirituality. Wow. And I remember pushing publish, and I thought, oh my God, what's going to happen? And the world didn't end. And I came out spiritually on iTunes. And I started to talk to people every week who were living their truth. They were living that voice of their soul. And what I noticed was, in that expression of really coming out and sharing that truth, it was like two worlds started to integrate in me. And that pressing, that nagging that had been there all those years started to subside. And so I started to realize that true fulfillment in life, that in my experience and the experience of a lot of my clients too, comes from expressing that truest voice of our soul in service to humanity, in contribution, and having amazing experiences through the process. And then also being able to acquire a lifestyle we love. Like, it all came together for me, right? So one of the things that I do now is I help people to really experience and express that unique set of gifts that they come in here with in a beautiful way, either through a podcast platform or through doing business as a spiritual entrepreneur.
Wow. Wow. That's, where do I start? Okay. So I want to backtrack a little bit, Devi. When you were thinking, okay, it's supposed to be about fulfillment, maybe. And you could go volunteer somewhere, but it doesn't necessarily mean like, that's it, I'm good. It's still this feeling inside. Were there people around you, since you were still in the closet spiritually, saying, well, that's just how it is. That's just life. Like,
I had so many people say, now what was a thing, because when you get to that place where you're like, well, now what? I've done all these things I think I'm supposed to do in order to someday experience fulfillment. Yeah. I got the degrees, I got the job, I bought the stuff, I did the things, right? I even made a real big difference for people. And I thought, well, I would feel more fulfilled by then, right?
Yeah.
So people around me were like, oh, it's just kind of life, you just kind of do your thing and you keep searching. And I'm like, And when I started to get that speaking the truth of our soul and really sharing our unique gifts, not serving someone based upon someone else's strategies. Like, Tony's stuff is amazing, let me tell you. And there was more that I wanted to contribute. That's the voice of my soul, right?
Yes.
And so I think when we're really authentically expressing those gifts that are ours and unique, it's a unique combination. I don't know too many other people who had swamis for godparents, who grew up in a mystical family, who have 2 degrees from Carnegie Mellon. Like, I just don't know many people, right? Okay, there you go. But like the whole mix, right? Like I guarantee you that your mix is a little different than mine, just a little different than whoever's listening in today with us. We all have this unique set of gifts that are ours. And we're here to share those. And we're here to imprint on humanity in a beautiful way and bring our collective gifts together. And I feel like that's where the spiraling up happens. And that's where that fulfillment lives. So yeah, a lot of people really believed and do believe still, I think, that you have to kind of do life that way. And you don't.
No, you don't.
Yeah,
It'll kill you.
Not where the fulfillment life. No.
Yeah. One of the ways to decide, I think, is sometimes all you know is what you don't know. Or that isn't going to work and that doesn't work. And it's frustrating because uncertainty sucks. I mean, sitting in uncertainty is very uncomfortable.
Yes, it can be. Yeah.
And I had somebody revolutionize my life in 3 simple, it's more words than I can count right now. And it was simply, he said, I don't know. The words, I don't know, which I had a lot of that. When you have a lot of options available, oh, you'd be great. Everything, girl. The world's your oyster. I'm like, really? Can you tell me which way do I go? It's terrible. But he said to me, I don't know is the beginning of new possibilities.
Yep. It's where all possibility lies. Yeah.
Yes. In the unknown. It's in the unknown. Because if what you know is not working, when in doubt, wait it out. It's one of my isms. Being able to recognize that you are maybe a little bit closer to the path, but not quite, is valuable. It doesn't mean you've got it wrong. It actually means you're probably a little bit closer, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like to look at life too, like, so we don't like to sit in questions as humans, right? Like that's, I think, really speaking to the uncertainty. Like we're wired to find answers. We're like a database. We return a query of results. Like, but the beautiful thing is when you're living your life, like the question is where our life responds. So for example, if we start our day with a question of like, what would be the most amazing way that I could create this thing? Or what would be something that would surprise and delight me in reference to whatever it is that I'm wanting to do? What we do is we then step into our day, and it's like our life gives us the answer, but we have to live in the question. If we go, oh, I can do this, great, it's answered. And then we don't seek anymore and our life doesn't respond. But if we're willing to live in that space of question, in that space where we're in the inquiry, literally our life becomes a divine co-creation, like with our own soul. It's like we start to experience the answers in these, we call them synchronous events or kismet or whatever, but we start to have these experiences where things show up that we're like, wow, I never would have thought of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If I was trying to solve that with my own mind, the mind that created the challenge for me in the first place.
Yeah, good point.
Right?
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that there's a huge gift in being in the uncertainty, and it's uncomfortable sometimes unless you can treat it like an adventure.
Well, on that happy note, as the adventure mentor that I am, I can't wait to do the Midlife My Ass tour. I'm just, it's on the books. You watch the Midlife My Ass. We're just getting started. It's going to be a bunch of us going, and we're going to send clips to Ellen and be like, hey, look at us, we're doing it. She's going to be like, come on to the show. I'll be like, okay, I'm supposed to be there.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah. The Midlife My Ass tour, it's going to take off, I swear. Anyway, and it all started, Devi, with the question that I encourage everyone to ask every single day, which is, how can I have more fun today than I ever thought possible? And you don't even have to work on it. Oh, I think, no, let it go. Like, say it and be done with it, and then watch at the end of the day. Guess what? It's answered. And you had more fun than you ever thought possible.
It's an incredible question to live into because it'll give you a lot of fun in your life. Like when the questions that we ask are so shaping our lives all the time, we don't even realize it. Like sometimes we're asking ourselves, well, why did that have to happen again? Or why does this always happen? Or, God, the things we say to ourselves about, I don't want that. When we're doing that, we're just like, we're literally living into our experience. But that question you asked is like beautiful and perfect and will create magical experiences in your life. So I love that.
Thank you, doll. It really does work, man. It's like, what message do you have to share? What changes everything? Well, how can I have more fun today than I ever thought possible? Can you imagine if everybody at a company for 30 days asked that question before they went into work? Like, what would be the change? I don't know, but it'd be great. I think
it would be extraordinary. I'm sure. Yeah.
It's like,
absolutely.
Yeah. Here's our motto. We're going to have a good time. And hey, doesn't that work for business? It adds to your likability factor in a big way. You look like you're having a good time.
Exactly. How could I appreciate my company even more? How could I appreciate this job even more? How could I appreciate the people I work with even more? How could we have more fun together? I mean, there's so many questions that we can live into that will give us an extraordinary experience.
I wanted to just tack on to that end of what you said about it. It really does depend on how we ask it. And Tony Robbins taught me that when with his example, when he said, you can either ask, why am I so fat? And your brain will tell you, or how can I lose weight? And your brain will tell you. And that was a game changer, man. Instead of saying, what's the point? Life sucks. What's the point? It's like, how can I make this matter? And then you get that answer.
Yeah. Or what would have to happen for me to have my healthiest body? Right.
I like that. There you
go.
Then
you step into it and it's like, you'll be guided. And the hardest thing I think for us as humans is to live in the question and to listen. Because we'll ask questions, we'll say things, and then we go about our day and we forget we asked the question and we're getting like the help we need. And we're like, oh, come on, you're interrupting my schedule. Like I have it all planned, right? You're going about your day. You're like, no, these are my action items for the day. And I'm doing it this way. And this phone call that's coming is interrupting. And you never know. That phone call could be an answer to your question that you were asking and your request that you have of the universe, right?
Yes. Be willing to go with the flow.
Yeah.
And let the agenda go. Ooh,
Amen,
Dr. Seuss
sister.
still
That's
lives.
A good one. That's a tweetable.
I'm gonna write them all down.
Write them
I'll
all
put
down.
one on each page and put 3 pages in between. I'm a big fat book with 12 ideas in it.
I love it.
I crack myself up. Anyway, this is
Too.
not about me. It's about you. So we went. So we went into you. You decided to. Well, no, let me go back a second. You did spiritualentrepreneur.com.
Yes,
Is that what you?
I have spiritualentrepreneur.com.
Okay. So you had this thing for a while, and yet you were still kind of nervous about going on the air about it.
Well, it's interesting. I would do it in small amounts. Like I was willing to use it on my business card, like to certain people, but I kept it really tight. And so, and I would talk to anyone who knew me really well, like really well. Actually, that's not anyone. It's not even true. Cause I've talked to friends that had known me from high school and like, what? I didn't know that about you. Like all those years later. Yeah. So,
Wow.
so it was pretty, yeah. And people would say to me, I don't understand. There's something about you I can't quite put my finger on. And when I came out spiritually on the show, they're like, oh, now I get you. Like I've started to understand more of your picture. You make more sense. And I had written a kid's book for empathic children because I was an empath. So that was kind of me starting to talk before my show and stuff. And yeah, but I never had really, I taught some meditation in small groups. I called them Nights of Light, where I would bring people in and we do meditation. And I've got Reiki Master certification, all these other things that I've studied. I've like a 2 times yoga teacher certified person. And, but I was searching for all this stuff that was already inside of me. And guys, we don't need more credentials. Like we think we do. We don't need to keep seeking from the outside. I promise you something from the inside of you. If you're feeling kind of stuck in a place or whatever, you're like wanting to move forward and make a bold move, there's something inside of you that wants to be birthed through you. And you just need to give it a voice and a platform. That's
beautifully said, hon. Beautifully said. And that's one baby step at a time, guys. It's not a major leap into a chasm. It's one baby step at a time that makes a bold move.
Yeah, absolutely. It was one push of published. And now 160 some odd episodes later, I'm still talking about it, but
that's so cool. And the joy just comes out of you that, clearly you've found that thing that you came to do, and it's expanding. There's more.
Yes.
There's always more, isn't there?
More. Yeah, totally.
There is no there.
No. And actually, I think what happens the more that we start to express, like we go from like the surface level, the big things that kind of scare us and make us shake from the inside. And then we start to move further and further into what our truth is. And I think, I know for me personally, because I grew up feeling a lot of other people's feelings, I would just compartmentalize a lot of my feelings because they were overwhelming, right? I'd be like, I'll deal with you later. Like, I just put you over here, right?
It's hard to be sensitive.
Yeah, it can be really challenging. And so it can be a gift and it can be really challenging. So like my edge right now, I like to call it a growth edge, is like really bringing out those feelings and letting them deliver wisdom to me, like letting that gift that I just compartmentalized because it was too much for me. And I didn't know how to talk about it, but bringing those out and letting those things teach me and guide my life in a deeper way. So I think the more that we're willing to go within and bring out and express and serve that way, I think the more we also blossom as a human. And I don't think that there's an ending to that edge. I feel like that's an edge we keep working on, right?
I love all that you said about that. And I almost want to pull that detail out of you. Like, so if somebody was listening and saying, well, I've compartmentalized so many of my feelings and I can't, where do I start? You may or may not agree, but I honestly think it's harder to keep it inside. It's just unfamiliar to be who you are, like in a bigger way.
Yeah, so I'll share some thoughts around that. Thanks for asking that. I think it's really so important for us as a human race to do that. So it's going to depend and I'm going to address both of these. If you're someone who's like highly sensitive or empathic, I've got something that's a little different for you than if you just have feelings that you've compartmentalized that are your own. So I'll liken it to this. When I was getting ready to write my book, I was at a grocery store and I was in line and there was this guy behind me and I just was really tired. And all of a sudden I was really mad. And I was like, oh, why am I tired? Why am I angry? I thought I was just tired. And I turned around and the guy behind me's veins are like popping out of his neck and he's really angry. And I'm like, oh, wait, those are his feelings and these are mine. He's angry. I'm tired. Right. So I asked a friend, I thought that was normal. I thought everyone felt that way. I didn't know that some of us do and some of us don't. And my friend was like, little children feel that way when they're growing up, but a lot of times they grow out of it. She said, you haven't. And so I asked a friend and she said, well, I said, do you feel other people's feelings? And she said, it's kind of like this for her. Like she's in her car and it's raining on the outside of the car. So she's nice and warm and dry inside, but she still knows it's raining. And I'm like, oh man, tops down in the convertible. It's in my mouth. It's in my eyes. It's in my hair. I feel it all. Right. So it helped me to understand and distinguish, like, depending upon your sensitivity to that. So for me, like the first step as an empath or highly sensitive is you need to learn to distinguish what your feelings are versus someone else's. And this little book I wrote, it's called What Feelings Do You Feel? I basically have this character, Kelly the koala, go through his day and learn how to ask just the question of who's feeling these feelings and listen in and feel which ones are his and which belong to someone else, and then just give them back. And he gets to keep his feelings he wants to feel, right? So it's very Dr. Seuss-y things.
It's brilliant.
And so that's the first step if you're an empath or highly sensitive, is really distinguishing what's yours and what's not. And then the next thing, if you have feelings that overwhelm you, so for example, I like to write music too. So I wrote a song and it was about someone that I knew who had passed on. It was someone I loved a lot when I was younger. And I'd stopped singing publicly because I was singing one day and I literally had all this energy coming in me and I was singing a sad song and everyone was crying and my throat locked up. I couldn't audiate at all. Like I was like so overwhelmed with emotion, right?
Oh, wow.
And then my friends asked me to sing at their dad's funeral the song I wrote about someone I knew who passed away. So you can imagine, I'm like, no way, I can't do that. But how can you turn down a friend whose father's passed, right? So I had to get resourceful. So I learned a technique that is really powerful. And it's basically like this. If you're going on stage, you're going into an office meeting and you're going to be overwhelmed, you have a big conversation you got to have with someone you love a lot, you can literally just put yourself in a safe space by yourself and allow yourself, just set the intention, okay, I'm going to allow myself to go in and learn from your feelings. I'm no longer compartmentalizing you. I'm no longer pushing you away. I'm going to allow you to come up and be my teacher. And so you sit with your body and you imagine in your mind's eye, like for me, I had to imagine I was going to this funeral and imagine everyone crying and imagine singing the song and just notice how my throat would lock up, right?
Wow.
And the deep sadness I was feeling. And I'm like, all right, what are you here to teach me? And I just sat with it in my body. And I literally, for me, it helps to touch the parts of me that were feeling the feeling. And I'm like, what are you here to teach me? And I let it move through me to the point where I was grateful for it as a divine teacher in my own body, in my own life. I went and sang, I didn't cry. It was great.
Wow.
But it took me processing that on my own in advance. And so our feelings are doing their job when they're there to teach us something. They're not there just because feelings happen. They're there because they have a gift for us. And if we're willing to give them the time and the space to fully express in and through us, not resisting them where we're energizing them and compartmentalizing them and shutting them down, but letting them move through, they move through. They do eventually move through. And then there's this opening in space and there's a gift that came through if you can receive it and pay attention to what it is that it's teaching you. So that's what I would say is like, open the box in a safe space and decide if they're yours or someone else's. And if they're not yours, give them back. But if they are yours, set the intention and let them move through you and be a divine teacher for you. And so you can just be grateful for all the emotions that you're feeling. And breath is amazing. If you need to help also kind of breathe into them, you can just deepen your breath and move into them, and touch helps a lot too.
Yeah, you make me want to do that.
Right?
Feel it. Yeah. Seriously. It's a beautiful way to express that. It's especially difficult for someone who's had sort of a disastrous upbringing, for lack of quicker, better words. You don't know whose feelings are whose. Try them on like shirts and feel, what's yours and what doesn't feel right, you can let it go. But there's a hang up that happens, and that is, and I know I went through it. I don't know if you did, but I would get mad at myself for being mad, or mad at myself for being upset, or mad at myself for being sad. So on top of everything else, there's this, self-flagellation that's going on. And it doesn't really serve much except to express some, more negativity. But being able to sit with it, like you just suggested, is brilliant. And I've always said you have to love away your enemies. And that's a foreign concept, and we're not going to explore really. But it's kind of what you're saying, which is to embrace that thing, which is so uncomfortable. And
and I love. Yeah.
No, go.
Oh, I love that you bring up the self-flagellation or judgment piece, because I think we oftentimes do judge our feelings. Like, this is a good feeling and that's a bad feeling, and I don't want to feel this, so I want to feel this other thing. And some people say, you need to vibrationally feel differently in order to create things and other things. And not that I disagree with that. I think that we create differently if we're happy than if we're in a sadder place, right?
Sure.
However, I do believe that the judgment on the feelings that we have, if you can just really get that they're not good or bad, they're not right or wrong, they're teachers. They're there for a reason, and they're there to give you a gift. So, I mean, you could judge them as a gift bringer, even if they're uncomfortable, right? Yeah. They're there to give you a gift. And the more that you're willing, when we resist anything, we energize it. So when we're judging or resisting, or like, this is bad, this is wrong, I don't want this, we're compartmentalizing, shutting away, and literally energizing that which is a gift for us in a non-supportive way. But if we can actually receive them and bring them in and have them be our teacher, there's so much there for us. And it's a process, not to get rid of them, not to shift them, not to change them, but just to be with the gift of your feelings. And I'm working on that. It's a growth edge for me right now. I'm going deeper into some of my compartments, right? My friend Danny always says, you just put a trash can right there. If it doesn't feel good, throw it out, right? So like having a place where you can, if there's something that comes through, you're like, I don't really want that, I'll just put that there. But I've got to stop compartmentalizing. And that's something I've done a lot, obviously, to keep my spirituality hidden, right? To be loved and appreciated and received. Yeah. Also, I was this tall when I was 12. So I was 6 feet tall. You can't see how tall I am, but very tall person, fully developed at age 12. So I was like, not only a freak spiritually, but I was like a freak physically. Wow. And in bad, right? So for me to like start to allow myself just to get that we're all uniquely awesome as we are. Like, each one of us, that unique gift that's us is a gift to the world if we're willing to embrace it and not judge it, and let us just flourish and express.
Acceptance is the key to peace.
Amen, sister. Yeah, it's true.
It really is. And you have to go through it to get over it. Just don't get stuck in it. And what you've done is lay out a beautiful way for people to move through it, recognize it, love it away. And then you can go on your merry way and see what's next. Yeah.
Can I add one little quick thing?
We are not going anywhere, girl. You got time.
Okay.
We got time.
So one thing that I would say too, this process that I'm talking about can be so helpful for the bold move. So like, if you're wanting to step into something that terrifies you, or that is like a growth edge where you have those big feelings around it. Yeah. Literally, like, this process is the gift, because you can move through all that stuff before you even take the steps. And sometimes it helps just to jump out of the airplane. Like, I had a fear of heights, so I took up, skydiving was on my list, right? I did 50 jumps, and then I can finally drive on a cliff. I'm fine. But wow. However, had I known this process then, I probably could have done some of this work on my own and allowed the fear to come up and look at, like, were there any images around that? Was there anything that I heard? Was there any, thoughts that came in around it? And just embrace it as a teacher of what the gift might have been in my fear of heights, right? What was that showing me, right? Instead, I was like, I will overcome the fear and I'm going to jump out of the plane, right? So
wait a second. Hold on just a second. Yeah. Hold on a second. Did you purposely jump out of a plane because you said, I'm afraid of this, therefore I'm going to conquer it this way, like determined?
Yeah.
So you weren't like, I really, really just want to jump out of a plane. I just really do. And I'm kind of scared of heights, but I'm going to do it anyway. I mean, there's two different energies that are motivating.
No, I went 50 times because I wanted to, like, the first time I went, I did that. I went hang gliding, skydiving. I went, what do you call it? Rappelling, right? The rappelling still scares me. I still like, I'd get off rope and I would literally be like crying and be like, off rope, just like my whole body would be shaking. Right. So, but when I was a little girl,
you are so bold.
But it's interesting because like, and it helps. I mean, it definitely helped. Like I don't have the same fear of heights anymore. I mean, I literally could not hang off the side of a building on the 14th floor above, or I would just be like I thought I was going to die, you know? And so, but now I can go on a hot air balloon and I'm like, I want to jump out. Like because of all the training of the skydiving, you get to this weird place. Don't recommend jumping out of a hot air balloon, but yeah, unless you're prepared, but.
Well, that helps. Yeah. So did you just get used to the feeling of being afraid, or are you just no longer afraid?
When I skydive, it turned into excitement because I would go. So here's the thing: when you jump out of an airplane, when you're at, 15,000 feet, it's surreal. It's not like there's ground there, right? It just looks like this big open void, and you see some colors in the distance, and there's like patchwork on the ground. Where I was jumping was out in Devis, California, and so lots of fields, right? And you just go, and then you're like, oh, this is fun. Like I feel like I'm flying and I'm in the air and I'm going to do some turns and I'm going to play. And then you get down to the ground and you're looking at your altimeter. You're like, okay, it's getting closer. I got to pull, right? So you throw out your chute and then you're coming in. And then when you start to get to your final, when you're making your final landing pattern, that's when the ground starts to get close. And then you're committed. You can't put yourself back in the airplane. You can't do anything. You're going to come down. So you might as well, do your best to stay present. Hopefully, have your ankles together so that you don't get hurt, make sure.
Wait a minute. You were committed the second you jumped out.
But see, it doesn't feel that way because you go, it feels safer for some reason. No. Don't ask me. I don't know. Altitude's your friend, they say, right? So, but it's just, it was one of those things where by the time you get to where I used to get scared was when the ground was close. So for me, I'd be really close to the ground, and that's when I'd be like,
that'll do it.
But then you just go and you do it again and again and again and again, and then eventually you'll kind of be like, okay, well, this is getting boring. How do I make it more adventurous? And you'll do relative work, and you work your way through it to the point where you're like, okay, now a roller coaster is not scary. Now I'm not scared to hang off the side of a building. Like you work through those things. And I probably could have done the work I do now and not had to jump out of an airplane. I probably could have allowed myself to have those feelings. But skydiving was really fun. We used to have a group we called ourselves Earth, Wind, and Higher Adventure Club.
Did you sing on the way down?
No, we didn't. You can't really hear too much. And your cheeks are going like this the whole way.
Good little image right there. So there's two things about that. One of them is that your familiarity comes, you realize that you're going to make it. Like you keep doing something, you realize you're going to make it. I have this goofy analogy on my website, Devi, in which I said, every day, millions of people risk life and limb. Every single day they do that. They all go to the grocery store. And it's just like, yeah, that's silly. But you know what? It's the same damn thing. Whether you're going to France or you're going to the Kroger, it's the same thing.
It's true. Yep. More accidents probably happen in your car than they do jumping out of airplanes, right?
Well,
like I would imagine. Yeah, there's that. There's usually fatal and they happen out of airplanes.
But we're still fogging a mirror, all of us.
All of us. Yeah.
Still fogging a mirror.
Yeah.
Yep. We made it. We make it all the time. And the other thing is, have you seen that flying thing that has it has some wheels where you could land, but it's like it's like a triangle and it's got a motor and it flies way up there where the geese are. Have you seen that?
Yeah,
I've seen a video of the lady petting the geese as they're flying next to her.
I have not seen that video. I'll have to watch it.
I would love to do that. Let's do that. Committing you.
Yeah, it's really special. I have to say, if you've ever had dreams of flying or anything like that,
all the time.
And I'm legally not telling you to go do this because I don't want to get in trouble if you go skydiving. But I'm just all I'm saying is there is something to be said for if you like that feeling of doing something like hot air ballooning or skydiving or hang gliding. You can start off in tandem with someone else where they help you. And I haven't been in quite a few years. The last jump I did was a relative work jump with this guy who was on Sonic Meat was the name of his diving team. And he used to jump into like stadiums and stuff. Cool. But we did a fun dive out of the last time. And then I was like, I'd have to go and, probably get involved in a relative work team and all. And I was just like, I think I did what I needed to do. So it's everyone's journey is what we do, but it can be really fun if you're thinking about it. say, try something new and different. And it switches it up. Like you're saying, like you live through it and you start to realize that you're going to be okay. It's like me pushing publish on my podcast, guys, was so much scarier for me. I mean, skydiving was scary when I started to land, but like going out of the plane, like there was something, it was at least equally terrifying for me.
Wait a minute. You pushing publish on your podcast was scarier than jumping out of a plane?
I'd say it was about the same. Yeah. Because, well, and it's because I was telling my story.
Yeah.
I wasn't scared of the interviews. Those were fine. I did it in backwards order. Normally you launch with 3 episodes, right? For me, normally you would usually do the intro episode and then 2 episodes. Like either you talk direct to your listener, or you might do an interview or a co-hosted show or something.
Yes.
For me, I did 2 interviews. I did them first. They were way easier. And then the very last day, accountability helps, guys. Accountability really helps.
Nice.
The very last day, I am, getting ready to push publish. I've committed, and I keep my commitments to the best that I can. I will do that. And so I'm like, girl, you get 3 tries and that's it. And I'm literally sitting there in my aunt's, my apartment was being worked on in DC where I was visiting family. I have a place out there too that I go to. Yeah. So I was at my cousin's room where she had like grown up and moved out of. I'm not in the setup that I would normally be in. I did there's like a green fuzzy towel there trying to like absorb sound and everything. And I'm in like a rickety chair. I did 3 episodes directly, 3 tries back to back. And I'm like, I just got to pick the best one. And when I pushed publish that night, I literally didn't know if I was going to get locked in a rubber room. I didn't know what was going to happen. There was little 5-year-old that stopped talking about her truth, was pushing publish. It wasn't just the adult in me. It was like this little girl who was so terrified of being bullied or, called a freak or whatever, which I think we all have. Fear of heights, way easier in some ways than letting yourself really be seen. I think that's something we all have to go through at some point in our journey if we really want to make a difference in the world.
Wow, that was a wildly bold move. And I heard your intro on that show.
You did? Oh
yeah, girl, I did. And you sounded remarkably calm.
Oh, thanks.
You did. Yeah, guys, check it out for somebody who's doing a first time out of the gate. Devi nailed it. And
thank you.
Yes. And now look at it. Wow. Now
it's
look
crazy,
at you.
Right? Yeah.
The beauty is that when we do that, like, I'm going to wear purple pants. And then people will be like, really? Why? Like, I don't know, but maybe somebody else will like it. But in the end, you gotta live with you and your decisions. And you might find other people that like purple pants too. And that's kind of what's happening for you, huh?
Yeah. And life's way too short to live our life compartmentalized. Like, I really believe that each one of us is here to express that unique gift of our own soul and to get to know the truth of who we are. I think all the rest of it is bonus, like experience, but I think it helps us along the path. And I really feel like business is the most powerful transformational seminar you could ever take. I think podcasting is the same when you're putting your message out. And I feel like the gift is in the self-discovery that comes from that. And the gift is in the difference that we make through those gifts. And I feel that's where gratitude lives, where fulfillment lives, where we get to really experience, I feel like the light of God inside, like that beautiful essence of who we are, is when we're allowing ourselves to be a channel for that. So, yeah.
Wow. I love that. I love that you bring that to the game, I guess. It's not really the right word, but to the world of podcasting and to the world in general. We both have an understanding of frequency and how when you speak, a vibe is carried out and it's picked up and all that other metaphysical and spiritual understandings, but that you're encouraging other people to find their voice and express themselves. That's what Bold Moves is supposed to do a little bit, just baby steps, guys. You can do it. Look, she did it. I did it. Still here. And in you're doing this with the podcast, is it Podcasters on Purpose? Mm-hmm. What would you say is the biggest top 2 maybe obstacles, concerns, challenges?
Yeah. So there's 2 things. So there's Podcasters on Purpose is a new show I have. If you like podcasting, you should check that out. And then there's Podcast on Purpose, which is my online academy. So nice. I have both. And I teach podcasting too, but What I see is the biggest challenge, I think, for most people, it's first of all, like, who am I? There's that syndrome of, they call it imposter syndrome, where we're like, well, who am I to get out there and share my message? Or who am I to do that? And here's the thing. You are a uniquely, divinely gifted soul with a unique voice that's here to transform humanity in a powerful way if you let it express through you. It is not a question that even needs asking. Like, it is the truth of your soul is exactly who you're meant to be. And when you
just
share that,
rolled out with that like a glitter-filled fire hose, beauty and truth. Holy cow! Can you please say that again?
I have no idea how to say that again.
Amazing, Debbie. That was just like spirit came out really, there.
Yeah, I'm more of a conduit than I am a source. Just so you guys know, that's one of my gifts, is pulling it through. So, what I would say is you have a unique gift and soul that's here to express, and there's no one that will do it like you do, and there's no one that's going to serve the people you're meant to serve the way that you will. Right. And the more that you kink that hose, the more that you hold yourself back, the more you're making people wait for the gifts that you're here to give. So who are you not to do that? It's not even a question, who am I? Like, you are the person who's meant to do that. So that's the first thing I would say. And the second thing I would say is people get into like, well, what should it be? And how should I do? That whole thing. Like, I don't know what my topic's going to be. Yeah. And the truth is, usually we do know. Like, I knew what my topic was. I just didn't want to do it because I was scared. So
if you hadn't jumped out of a plane yet.
I was scared. Yeah. So if you're willing to just like sit in, the thing that brings you joy, the thing that maybe moves you to tears, that thing when you hear music that it brings tears to your eyes, the thing that where you feel like, I can't possibly talk about that, or who would want to hear about that, or God, could I really say that? That thing, if you're on that, I teach podcasting on purpose, not just podcasting for fun. Like, if that's what you're here to do, I mean, it's fun, but if that's what you're here to do, you know what that is. There's some part of you that knows. And if you don't know, that's something else I help people with, is discovering that essence of who they are and what they're here to share. So if it's not at a conscious level, but I promise you there's a part of you that knows that answer right here, right now. And if you allow yourself to be with it, you'll get a clear yes, that's what you're meant to do. So I think that's another thing we throw in our way, or we get into technology is going to be challenging, or all of these other considerations. And the truth is, launching your show, if you're feeling called to share your message in a big way, a podcast is an extraordinary platform for that. Yay. You can go global very easily. Yes, exactly. Alexis and I both know this, right?
I love it.
It's a fabulous way to get your message out. And for me, it was a lot less scary than maybe even sharing it on a stage the first time, because it wasn't live.
Right.
I could push publish and give myself 3 tries, right? So the considerations we usually have are things we're just putting in the way of us really expressing that gift that we are to humanity. And I'm a stand that we do express that gift of who we are to humanity. So
I love it. I love it. It's also a challenge from the other side, because I help people become a podcast guest.
Yes.
Yes. And I like, I can white knuckle it right here on this task, because I look like I'm, lined up to be on a show, and the person that was just on has, I'm 7-time best-selling author and keynote speaker. And I'm just like, man, I've just moved a lot. I got some good stories. I don't belong on your stage. Who am I?
That's the imposter syndrome. Yeah, you are the woman that is meant to share the unique message that Alexis is meant to share. And that is your gift, and people are waiting for you. If you don't get out there and share it, then they miss out on you, right? That's the important thing for us to remember. Like, we're here for a reason in this time on this planet where we're at, because we have stuff to bring, express, share, grow, realize together. And we're in this together. And I've been really realizing this the longer I've had my show. Like, I've heard people say, oh, they put their pants on the same way, they're just people. And I went through this whole thing like, they want to be on my show? What? Like, I remember when my show was going, oh, really? They want to talk to me? Like, that's cool. But, this little awkward 12-year-old who was 6 foot tall, didn't want to be a freak, there's a part of me that was like, what? I'm really realizing that we raise people on a platform based upon how many likes they have on social media, what their platform is, how many years they've been doing something, like who they know, whatever. The bottom line is we're all beautiful souls here with a gift. And no one is above you and no one is beneath you. I remember I was in India in, I think it was 2000 or something. I went to a Deepak Chopra retreat.
Oh, nice.
And I had this thing about, putting people above and beneath and whatever, like that whole thing where I felt like, who am I, or what is this okay?
Yeah.
And he said, if you want to work on that, look in the mirror at yourself every day for like, I think it was like 30 or 60, I don't know however long you're supposed to do it. He gave a timeline.
Right.
He said, and just say to yourself, looking deeply into your own eyes, I'm above no one. I am beneath no one. I am equal to all. You could say I'm equal to all. I'm one with all. And just start to recognize that we're all here doing this thing called life together. And the work is truly on our insides a lot of the time. It's not out there, right? Life is responding to us. So
I love that, hon. We are all in this together, and we all do come from the same source. And so I like to give new meaning to this phrase, consider the source. Like,
I love that.
got it. Consider.
Yeah.
That's where we all come from.
Beautiful.
Guys.
That's a tweetable too, guys.
The book got a little bit thicker.
Deeper. Yeah.
I want to share with you, Debbie, something you don't know, and that is that people have looked at me and said, you're really bold, blah, blah, blah. It's always still going to be a stretch, guys. And my stretch was to contact Devi. She didn't know me from Adam, and all I had was a concept for a show. And I'm looking at all the shows that she's done, and I'm talking about you like you're not here, right? Sorry.
I'm hearing this for the first time too, guys.
I still had to come up and face that. Who am I? I'm not trying to be a big podcaster. I'm not on iTunes yet. Who am I to even ask? Who am I? All that stuff went through my head when I hit send on that email to you. And when you got back to me, I was just like, hallelujah. It meant so much and still does. But that moment of, maybe I'll be judged. I'll look silly. We go through it. Every single person does. And I think it probably never ends, because that's an indication that we're moving past an edge that we might have had. Huh?
Completely. And I honor you, Alexis, for doing that, because I've been on the side that you're talking about where I'm like, could I ask this person to be on my show? What? And then they said yes. I'm like, And here's the thing, just from my perspective, I got on the phone with you because we did a pre-interview where we talked a little bit about stuff just to kind of get to know each other better too. And I was like, God, this is such a beautiful and extraordinary human. Like I was really, you just bring so much energy and vibrance and radiance and brilliance and heart. And so, I really, I really enjoyed our conversation deeply, and I've enjoyed today too. So I really want you guys to get, if you're feeling called to do something that's outside your comfort zone, do it.
I know, right? Look at this.
Yeah. Pull the feelings out if you need to, and feel them and move through them before or jump out of the airplane, rip the Band-Aid off, whatever you need to do, whatever your style is. But your soul's message deserves a voice. And you can even make it a little bit easier by stating a powerful intention and letting that part of you that creates worlds. Really, do we all have access to the part of us that creates worlds to pave the way for you? Yeah.
Consider the source.
Yeah, exactly. Consider the source.
May the source be with you. Well, hang on. I am the source. What the hell?
Exactly.
You can't not be it.
Exactly. It's with all of us.
Girl.
So, yeah.
Man, thank you for that beautiful honor. I did everything I could, to overcome the fear. And guys, it's worth it, because if you're called to it, there's a way to do it. And my good friend Mark Hansen, the Chicken Soup for the Soul guy, he would say, "What you want wants you even more than you want it." I was like, "Can you slow that down just a second?" And it's true. We're called to do what we're called to do for a reason. There'll be a way.
That's so true.
If you want to cross the street, the highway, it might not look clear right here, but this side is, to just walk that far and then get to the middle and hang out. And the cars coming from that way will probably stop and wave you on. But if you didn't get off the freaking curb, they wouldn't have known you were trying to get there.
Oh, you make such an important point. We all think we have to figure it out in our head. Like if I had sat there and figured out what my show was gonna be in my head, it never would happen. It's like, you want to see what's on the other side of the hill, you got to walk to the top of the hill to see down. So get in action and start to figure it out while you're moving forward. That's how you're gonna discover it. Thanks for bringing that. It's such an important piece that I think, especially when you're like starting a new part of your journey as an entrepreneur, it's really easy to be like, well, I'm here and I'll figure it out here and then I'll do it. Do you need to? No, it's backwards. You need to start moving in the direction and then ask for support and let it come in for you. Yeah.
And I learned that. I was interviewing the lovely Judy Fox, and one of the things that she said was, it's action that creates clarity. It's not the other way around. And like, that's so confused. That's so backwards to how we're oriented, isn't it? Just, gosh, move in the direction that you're moved. Hey,
that's a tweetable.
Another one. Hey, we're on a roll. We gotta hang out more often, Devi. Hey, this is good.
That's great. Yeah, I love that.
You're a 6 foot tall, gorgeous blonde that's a walking, talking storybook of bold. I just,
I love that. Thank you.
You are. Oh my goodness. I know I could keep you on forever, but I won't. I'll have eternity to hang out with you later, I'm sure, at some point.
Yes.
Indeed. It's good to see you again, my friend.
You as well.
Man, thank you.
Thank you.
What shall we leave them with? Where should they go? Find you, hang out with you?
Yeah. So if there's any part of you that is having a stirring in your heart and your soul to express more, to share more, to make a bigger impact in the world, through expressing that voice of your soul, either on like a podcast platform, or if you're wanting to step into doing a business around it, or you're just really wanting to kind of learn how you co-create your life with the divine. You can learn all sorts of different ways to work with me. I do coaching, I speak, I have a podcast course, I do a lot of different things. You can find all that at deviadea.com. That's DEV like Victor, IADEA.com. And if you want to get a free resource because you're like, I know I want to do a podcast and I just kind of want to figure out what I need to get to have it, just to start it, you can go to podcastingonpurpose.com and download a little free guide on how to do that. Or you can listen to my shows, Spiritual Entrepreneur, spiritualentrepreneur.com, Podcasters on Purpose, podcastersonpurpose.com. But all of that's at deviadea.com. So if you want to just go there, you can go there too.
Perfect. I hold a class for the Podcast Guest Club, and I refer people to you all the time.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Like, she's doing it, and it's current, and that's what I love about it. It's current. I mean, if you look up stuff from 2017, it might not even be relevant now. But you got your hands are in it, your feet are in it, your heart's in it always, and it's current. And you rock, sister.
Thank you. You rock too, Alexis. I've really enjoyed our connection and our time together. To be continued for sure.
Me too. All the best.
All the best.
Guys, thanks for tuning in to Bold Movers and Shakers. There couldn't have been a brighter, happier, more delightful guest than Devi Adea. Thank you for joining us, sweetie.
Thank you, Alexis, and thanks for joining us. Yeah, till we speak again.
Bye, guys. We'll talk to you soon. And in the meantime, make it a great day. Bye.